a very, very consistent lady that she cares so much about mental health, always teaching, always teaching. So she's going to be teaching us on emotional regulation for parents. And who is Bosede? She is a mental health therapist, child and adolescent counselor with well over 8 years of experience in the counseling profession. Her passion is to ensure that individuals gain self awareness and learn life coping skills. Yeah, I'm echoing and I have no idea why. Let me see. Am I echoing now? Hmm. Seems it has stopped. Okay, I'm still echoing. Sorry. Please bear with me for a while. I don't know why I'm echoing. I'll figure it out later. Okay, maybe stop the music. Oh, yeah, it's true. It's true. Is it better now? I'm still echoing. Her- it's so cringy. So her passion is to ensure that individuals gain self-awareness and learn life coping skills that will lead them to live a life of fulfillment and resilience. Her therapeutic approaches include cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, and psychodynamic theory. She is a professional member of the Association of Counselors, Matchmaking, and Psychotherapy of Nigeria. Now I know why I've been echoing. Sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah, it has stopped. Okay. So for 6 years, she worked in the educational sector as a school counselor and currently works in the mental health sector as a therapist. Join Bosede as she teaches emotional regulation for parents in the summit. Thank you so much. Why I was echoing was because Wumi is in the background and her mic was not unmuted, so that was what happened, and it's been sorted now. Wumi, you did that. But said that you're much welcome. We are so happy to have you here. Oh no, her network has gone off. Let's hope it connects back. So she's going to be teaching us on emotional regulation for parents. This is a very, very important topic because if we don't know how to regulate our emotions, we are just going to be like the thunder and the lightning that Dr. Emmanuel thought about earlier. So it will be awesome for us. Okay, she's back again. Bosede, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm with you, Dr. Izini.
You have the floor. Please carry on now with your session.
Can you hear me?
Very well. Please carry on.
Okay, I hope the echoing is not from my end. I'm hoping it's not from my end. Good evening, everyone. It's evening here in Lagos, Nigeria. And thank you for that introduction, Dr. Izini. I'm pleased to be here. So we are looking at emotional regulation for parents. As someone who has a background in education, I like to teach. I'm kind of used to it. I like to teach. So I'm going to break this topic into, or I would say I'm going to pick out the three keywords in this topic, which are emotions, regulation, and parents. So when we talk about emotions, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Someone might say, oh, feelings, maybe the way I feel, like I feel sad, I feel happy. These are emotions that we can name, we are conversant with. Or I feel angry. or frustrated, or I feel elated, I'm excited. As much as we cannot do without oxygen, what makes us living, what makes us human, one of the things that is important to our existence is the air that we breathe in. If you take that out, even if our body is intact, every other thing is functioning, then the person is as good as dead. And sometimes we might not come to the realization of how important it is to breathe. If I'm to cover my nose and then my mouth all together, more or less like I'm suffocating myself. And to make it more effective, if I use let's say a veil or a scarf to do that, I'm sure in 1 minute I'll start coughing and choking and all that. If we can come to the realization of how important it is to breathe, just taking the air, the oxygen, then we would also embrace the importance of emotions. Emotions are powerful. Oh, not because they make us feel certain way, not because we can even name how we feel, but because emotions point us to things happening within us and around us. So emotions point us to what is happening on the inside. I mean, the internal struggles, sometimes they are not even struggles. The internal conflict, the internal situations, what is going on your inside that no one around you is aware of. And emotions also point us, they are pointers, they are signals to what is happening around us. So let's pick fear, for example. Fear is an emotion. When someone is afraid, what are the likely things that you expect the person to do? We call these behavioral responses. You might expect that the person will shout, or cringe, or run, or the person might even be shocked. These are responses to the emotion, which is fear. But before someone would get to that state of fearfulness, before someone gets to a point where they are actually afraid, something has happened. Maybe they saw a ghost, on a lighter note, or the person remembered something that has happened and was quite a fearful occurrence, or the person saw something that is scary, like I don't like snakes, for example. So imagine me, I don't want to imagine that now. So as I am speaking, I don't want us to go too deep, but imagine something that scares you. Let's say an animal that scares you. Some people are afraid of the dark. Some people are afraid of spaces. They have phobia for spaces. Some people, people have phobia for different things. And when we come in contact with those things that we're afraid of, or situations, or we remember incidents that has, made us fearful, I'm using fear as an example, then that emotion is supplied. That emotion, which is fear, is generated. So it is a signal to, from the brain to the mind and then to the body, telling that person that something is going on. You need to pay attention. How about sadness? That's another, emotion. When someone is sad, do people just wake up and they are sad? No. Some persons might say, I don't even know why I'm feeling this way. We will get there as we are looking at emotional regulation. We will get to that point where you can actually understand why you are feeling the way that you are. So emotions are no jokes. They don't just happen to us out of the blues, and they are not just there for us to be in that state where you are all by yourself, or you are excited, or you can share those moments with people. They are signals, they are pointers they are indicators to what is happening within us and what is happening around us, and we need to pay attention. So now moving on to emotions in parents. Parenthood, adulthood is a stage on its own. And for someone to be a parent, a child or children would be involved in that relationship, in that setting. Well, as parents, as adults, we have come to a point, or I would say it's expected of us, to be at that level where, people expect us to supply the necessary behavioral response when something happens. I'll take us back. So I'm using certain terminologies and I want us to understand. Behavioral responses are what you do with the emotion or emotions that you have. And emotions actually come from somewhere. I would also let us know. So as a parent, talking about emotions, you have emotions. Of course, your children have, your children also have emotions. I mean, they are humans. They are first humans before they are children. But there is a gap. There is, a lap, and that gap is the fact that a child or your child is at a developmental stage where a whole lot of processes is going on. What you can understand as a parent, what you can express as a parent, the child cannot. So take for example, my daughter loves, she loves watching Disney Junior a lot. And I try to limit that during weekdays like this. And I always get the question why. And of course, I will always explain why. Why? But she has not come to that place of understanding. I mean, understanding why I'm limiting screen time or I'm saying no to screen time during, weekdays. My why number one is that it can make you go to bed late. Two, you have gone to school, you have engaged your brain, you have done a lot of exercises. That brain needs to rest, and so on and so forth. But children, oftentimes toddlers, cannot understand. And when we are talking about children here, I'm going to be referring to infants, babies, of course. I'm going to also be referring to preschoolers. I'm going to be referring to toddlers, preteens, and teenagers. We can't leave out teenagers. We can't leave out adolescents. They are children. Yes, the fact that they are all big and they can display certain characteristics, whether emotional or mental, they are still children. They are still in a state of transition. They have not fully come into adulthood. I would say they are in between childhood and adulthood. So they are still children. So when we talk about emotional regulation, so I've splitted the topic into the three key words, and then I want to bring the two, which is our focus this evening. It's evening here in Lagos, Nigeria. I want to bring the two together. What is emotional regulation? How do you regulate your emotion? So since emotions are something that we cannot do without, they are so important to us as the air that we breathe. You can't say, today I'm not going to show any emotion, I'm not going to feel. In fact, that's dangerous for your mental health. You can't say, I'm not going to show any emotion, I'm not going to feel anything, I'm not going to. No, no, that's impossible, because you'll be denying yourself, your brain, and your mind the ability to understand what is going on within you and around you. So, how do we regulate emotions? How do we come to a place where our emotions are not, scattered, they are not everywhere? We can't even understand, what we are doing, or would have taken certain decisions, would have said some things, and we need to live, in regrets. We begin to have regrets, like what is going on, what is happening. Emotional regulation is the ability to manage and control your emotions. It is, the ability to have influence, to choose and select what you do with your emotions. So I'm going to go back to the illustration using fear. Let's say I see the animal that I don't like. And of course, fear sets in. Seeing that animal, my brain interprets the signal that my brain picks from the situation is, Bosede, you don't like this animal. Then the emotional response that my brain supplies to my mind is freeze, run, or shout or scream. Then for me to regulate my emotion at that point in time, is it advisable to shout, to scream? Will this animal not pursue me? Is it advisable to freeze? Is it advisable to run? Which one will be the best for me? Sometimes some people will say, oh, it might be difficult and challenging to even choose what to do at that point in time. If you have subjected yourself to regulating, to managing your emotions, to influencing your emotions over time, you know what to do. There are so many illustrations. Take, for example, someone insults you. if you are in Nigeria, Lagos precisely, and you use commercial buses. So let's say a bus conductor insults you. You want to get your change. You're applying a route, moving from one end to the other, and then you want to get your change. And this bus conductor starts insulting you, shouting and screaming on top of his voice. And all you did was, conductor, give me my change. That was what you said. How do you manage the situation? How do you ensure that you do not get to a point where you are also screaming and shouting and everyone is saying, Auntie, it's okay, Uncle, it's okay. And then people are begging you and then they are begging the bus conductor as well. How do you get to that point? It's all about influencing your emotion or your emotions. So I was saying that children are in a developmental stage. As parents, we need to understand that. In fact, as caregivers, we need to understand that, because I believe this does not involve parents alone. It also includes caregivers. We need to understand that. So if you are telling a child no, for example, oh no, I can't get you chocolates today. No, you can't watch the TV. Ah, no, you can't go out to play with your friend. The child, toddlers in particular, cannot come to that point where he or she will be able to process that information or see reason why you are saying you cannot. What that toddler will interpret is, "Well, mommy does not want me to go and play, or daddy does not want me to go and play, or my auntie does not want me to go and play, or my teacher does not want me to go and play." That is the interpretation the child will give. So understanding the psychology of the mind of a child is very, very important. You are an adult, a child is a child. If I move further to a preteen, for example, preteens are always acting nonchalant. Those that are around age 10, 11, they're always acting like, there's nothing that's going to happen. The world is free. The world revolves around them. The world will wait for them. They're always acting that way. So how do you come to a point where you can understand what is going on in the mind of this child? Acting that way is just a defense mechanism. They don't want you to see, because they are moving towards adolescence. They are moving towards the adolescent stage. And of course, which is one of the most common traits that adolescents display. They are not yet adolescent though. And they want to feel like, no, don't worry, I have this thing under control. Nothing will happen. And if care is not taken, your interpretation as an adult, your interpretation as a parent will be that this child does not care. Oh, this child is lazy. This child does not want to listen. Oh, this child will not just take instructions, or this child is disobedient. You need to understand how the mind of that child is working at that point in time. Then I'm going to move to adolescents now, teenagers. Oh, they oftentimes believe, I would say 80% out of 100 of teenagers oftentimes believe that they are grown up, they are old enough, they can handle it on their own. For preteens, they care that way and they also put on a nonchalant attitude. But for adolescents, they want you to know that, mommy, daddy, I can handle this thing. Or they tell their teachers, Mrs. This, Mr. That, nothing will happen. But we need to understand again that they are still children. Their brain is, in a developmental process. Their brain is growing. Their brain has not fully matured. There's still a lot of filtration when it comes to information. Information is going into the brain. The brain is still filtering information because they are building an identity. If you call a teenager now and you ask the question, who are you? The teenager would most likely define himself or herself, based on maybe what they like, what they have achieved, which is part of it, but not the entirety of who we are. So we need to understand how the mind of children works, and how do we understand them? How do we understand the way the mind of children works? Number one, dialogue. Have a dialogue with a child. So let's say for example, I send my child, get me a glass of water. Get me a glass of water the first time. Get me a glass of water the second time. Get me a glass of water the third time. The child is seated, playing, PS, I think it's PS5 now that is involved. PS5, or the child is watching cartoon, watching anime. The child is engrossed and doing something. And I've said it 3 times, 3 different times. Get me this, get me this, get me this. And the child is not responding. Of course, as a parent, as an adult, I'll be upset. That it doesn't mean that this child cannot hear me calling him or her. Why is this child disobedient like this? Why won't this child listen to me? Or this is how he always does, or this is how she does all the time. So dialogue will come in this form, when you have a one-on-one conversation with the child, letting the child know how you feel about that attitude, about the situation. It might not be at that moment, it might be at a time where you are calm. Yes, because you don't want your emotions to get in place. You are calm, you feel calm, and there are no distractions. So it's not the time where you say, "Oh, Daniel, I want to have a chat with you concerning what happened, earlier on, concerning what happened in the morning." And then a phone call comes in, and then you pick the call and say, "Oh, excuse me." Or while you are talking to the child, you pick a call and then you are chatting on your phone. No. And I say this because when it comes to emotional regulation, or no, when it comes to building children, when it comes to grooming children, when it comes to helping children transit into wholesome adults, into complete adults, children learn more by what they see or what they hear. Children learn more by imitation. So your ability as a parent, my ability as a parent, to model, a healthy emotional regulation, to model how we engage our emotions, to model the kind of outlet we choose to express our emotions. So outlets are also synonymous to behavioral responses. Rather than shouting on Daniel, "Daniel, I've told you, bring water for me, bring a glass of water for me. You don't want to bring the water. What is so special about that cartoon? What is so special about the anime? I'm going to seize that PS5. I'm going to throw it away." That is an outlet for my emotion. And it's okay for me to feel frustrated at that point in time, because this is a child I've called 3 times and this child has refused. So rather than model or choose that kind of outlet, that kind of behavioral response to express how I felt, because it's also good that I express how I feel. Else the child will just think that, oh, anything goes. The child will just think that, anything I do goes. And then maybe when the child gets to school, the child does not also listen to teachers, does not listen to staff members, does not listen to any adult outside. Maybe the child is sent on an errand and the child is gone, being like, "Oh, my mommy does not, after all, my mommy does not do this, or my daddy does not do that." No. So have a dialogue. Number 2, that dialogue needs to be assertive. Assertive in the sense that you are going to let the child know how you feel. Clearly state how you feel. "I felt upset when I sent you water." Sometimes we feel that having conversations like this, especially with toddlers, we feel that it is difficult. No, it's not. It's not. Yes, for those that are younger, for children that are younger, it might be challenging, it might be difficult for them to understand some of this, but their brain is absorbing the information. Remember, I said that children are growing, moving from childhood to preteen to adolescence, and the brain is gathering information. The brain is filtering information. So when you do this once, you do it the second time, you do it the third time, the child will naturally pick up, this model of resolving issues. So after dialogue, you move to being assertive. You can dialogue and not be assertive. And then yes, you have not portrayed or displayed any form of regulated emotion at that point in time. So an example of dialoguing and not being assertive is this: you call the child, you have decided to call the child aside at a time when you feel calm, but the first thing you start with, you're always disobedient. No, that's not an assertive way of communicating how you felt. That is not an assertive way of letting the child understand the implication of what he or she has done. You don't start by saying, "Daniel, you're always disobedient. You don't used to listen to me. You're already judging. You're already judging the child. You're not assertive. So you start by stating how you feel. Daniel, I felt upset when I sent you to give me a glass of water and I did not. Some children will apologize, some would not. The purpose of assertive communication is not for the child to apologize. Yes, it's for the child to understand that there's a better way to handle issues. It's for you to also express how you felt or how you're feeling if you're expressing yourself at the moment. And emotions need outlets. Yes, that is why sometimes some people will just shout and scream and you'll be like, what happened to this person? Why are you shouting and screaming? That is why sometimes some people will choose outlets such as breaking things. Emotions need outlets, and even as parents, we are not supposed to repress our emotions. No, we are not supposed to push our emotions down. It is not healthy for us. So you feel that okay, my child is too young to understand. No, the child is not too young to understand that there is a healthy pattern of communicating. There is a healthy pattern of expressing, or trying to resolve conflict. Then number three, be compassionate with yourself as a parent. What does self compassion is a message that I've been preaching like over a year now. It has been like my anthem over a year now. When you are compassionate with yourself as a parent, you will be compassionate with your child. So take for example, out of family, out of being a parent to your child, when it comes to your social relationships, when it comes to your work life, let's say your business life, how do you handle issues? Do you use swear words? Do you use curse words? At yourself when something goes wrong. Are you like, I shouldn't have done this? Why am I so? I don't even want to use those words, but I will just to cite this illustration. Why am I so dumb? Why can't I do things right? And your child is listening. Your child can hear you. Your child can hear you. Use those choice of words. Why can't I just get things right? So when you make mistakes as a parent, be compassionate with yourself. Be self-compassionate. Don't begin to use swear words against yourself. Don't begin to use words that are irrational, words that are unhealthy towards yourself. Then point number four. Yes, this should be point number four now. Teach your children cause and effect. So I'm still going to use Daniel as an example. Daniel, get me a cup of water, and Daniel did not. So I will make Daniel in my dialogue now. I will make Daniel, if you see this outline, they are one step after the other. I'll make Daniel understand that when you are sent on an errand, or when you are called upon, let me start from there. When you are called upon, you ought to respond. You don't know the state the other person is in at that point in time. I could be choking. I could be in distress, and a glass of water, a cup of water is what I needed at that point in time. And it is, also if you can't come to me to get the water, it's also okay to state that, oh, mommy, I can't come to you, or mommy, I'm coming, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. If that child has gotten to that state, that age that the child can express himself or herself that way. Yes. So, mommy, oh, I'm coming. Oh, mommy, can you give me 5 minutes? Oh, Daniel is urgent. I'm choking. So it's also good that rather than going mute, rather than being quiet, rather than being silent, it's also good that you communicate. You state, let the other person understand what you are doing and how you want to respond to them at that point in time. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Carry on. This is really powerful.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right. I have issues with power supply. My background is dark. Although I can see my lips moving. Okay, so I was saying that letting the child understand the cause and the effect of that action. So when you do this, or when mommy says do this, when daddy says do this, and you do not, there will be a consequence, or there will be consequences for the response that you have chosen as a child. Or maybe the consequence will be that you won't watch, cartoon for a week. You won't watch. You won't play your video game for a week. You won't take snacks to school for a week. Or I'm going to cut short, your snacks money, your lunch money, and all that. Let the child understand that when we err, when we do something wrong, there are consequences, and that is how life works. We can't just choose to live anyhow. We can't just do things, anyhow. We need to weigh our decisions. We need to weigh our options before we act. We can't just jump into a flood of decisions, or we can't just jump into a decision or onto a decision and then begin to act that out. Help the child, to understand. Then also, as a parent that is emotionally regulated, or a parent that wants to learn emotional regulation, to be proactive. I call it to be responsive. To be responsive to the child or towards a child is better and healthier than being reactive towards a child. What is a child motive? So I'm still using Daniel as an example. What was Daniel's motive for not bringing me a glass of water? Maybe Daniel was, playing video game. Now, rather than shouting, rather than yelling at Daniel, rather than even lifting the video game and smashing it, I know that is possible as African and Nigerian parents. Yes, it happens in some homes, so don't let us deny that. So rather than taking that route to express my emotion, what is Daniel's motivation for not answering me? Is it that this video game is a distraction to Daniel? Is it really a distraction to Daniel? Is it something that Daniel can do without? So now we come to a place where, or a step that we call appraising our thoughts. We need to appraise our thoughts. Should I take this video game away from Daniel? Should I limit Daniel's screen time? You want to look at the particular thing the child was doing at that point in time that motivated the behavior. So let me use another example. You go to the supermarket, you're shopping, you're getting some things, and your child just points to a toy. Let's say, your girl child points to a toy, points to a baby doll, beautiful purple, a baby doll dressed in, purple and pink. Your 6-year-old, your 7-year-old child points at that, and you don't have money for it. It's not on your list. You can't even afford it. Let's say it will cost you a sum, or at that point in time you can't afford it. It's something that you can afford on a norm, but it's not in your budget. And this child is saying, "Mommy, I'm going to take this doll with me today, whether it is in your budget or not." And you are wondering, what is wrong with this child? Then from there, if you're not careful, your emotional responses that will begin to build up will be anger. As an African parent, you want to spank the child. You might want to hold yourself because you're in public and you're like, if I get home today, what I'm going to do to this child? But at that point in time, you should take a pause. What is motivating this child's behavior? What is motivating her behavior? Yes, she wants a doll. Why? These are the pattern of questioning that you are going to use to engage your child, to dialogue with your child, to come into an agreement with your child, where both of you can leave the supermarket without you purchasing that item. So you can call the child's name. Let's say Cynthia, why do you want a doll now? Mommy, I need a doll. Okay, maybe the old one is, Mommy, you promised me. So the child is also giving reasons why she needs that item at that point in time. Then remember the second step that I mentioned, assertive communication. Okay, I can't afford to buy you this at the moment. These are the things that are on my list. Mommy wants to buy this. Mommy wants to buy this. Mommy wants to buy this. Can we purchase this item later? and you'll be specific about the later. Can we purchase this item after this term? And the child might ask, okay, when is after this term? Oh, it's 3 months from now. Oh, it is this. Oh, it is that. And you are going to fulfill your promise. So you don't just say that to shush your child away, because children remember. Yes, they might not be able to envisage for too long. I mean, envisage into the future for too long, like hoping what will happen a year, 2 years from now. But such they will remember. So try to know the motive behind a child's behavior. Then, when we talk about a parent that is emotionally regulated, for some people they have tried. For some people, the difficulty, the challenge is because as a parent, you cannot also regulate your emotions yourself. So some of the questions that we might want to ask as adults, as parents, is: am I self-aware? What level of awareness do I have about me, about who I am, about how I relate, how I interact with myself, how I interact with people? What level of awareness do I have when it comes to my emotional bank? How emotionally strong am I? When I'm faced with difficulties, when I'm faced with challenges that does not have to do with my children now, how do I handle it? What is my self-talk, or what are my self-talks? How do I talk to myself when it comes to my job, when it comes to my spouse, when it comes to my friends? How do I relate with myself? When we are able to answer some of these questions, then it will also be easier for us to self-regulate as parents, and also train and teach our children how to be emotionally regulated. So the question now really is not, oh, teaching children to be emotionally regulated. As a parent, are you emotionally regulated? Remember I said that children pick up behavioral traits much more from what they see, what they hear, by imitation, simply put, from what they see, what they hear, than what we tell them to do. And it's because of the way their brain is wired. Children pick information more from what they see. So if they see mommy that is always shouting, if they see daddy that is always using swear words, daddy that will be upset and will hit the door, or daddy that is always passive aggressive, yes, that's an example. Or mommy that is always aggressive, mommy that, when I offend mommy like this, she's going to hold me and she will shake me very well. Or when I offend my mom, the next thing is, some children even know that when they commit an offense, they don't even have to say anything. Just stretch your hand, and then mommy and daddy will beat you. It is maybe after the beating, they will now listen to your motive, behind that action, behind the child's reaction. And the reverse should actually be the case. And it is not in all situations that you beat. They are if you train your child early, if you engage that child, in emotional regulation early, you will find out that you use little to no corporal punishment. Oh, kneel down, raise up your hand, do this and do that. You will use little to no form of corporal punishment when you infuse emotional regulation. I'm going to go back to infancy. I'll go back to, yes, infancy. A baby, for example, let's say a child that is 6 months, that is 1 year old, and then the child is crying. How do you co-regulate? There's a time we call co-regulation. How do you help the child to understand what is happening and how that child can feel loved, and responded to in the environment? The baby is crying and crying. In our setting, African Nigeria setting, some people will say, leave the child. If you carry this child too much, this child, will get used to you carrying the child, and then the child might not want to stay on the ground and all that. As small, as little as babies are, they can also learn how to regulate their emotions. So when you carry a baby and you cuddle the child, except the child is hungry, if it's a child that is age, let's say 4 months and below, maybe the child has not overcome colic, for example, or the child is hungry, or the child is distressed, or the child is going through one health condition or the other. You carry a baby, what will happen? And you cuddle the baby, the child will be quiet. If the child is not hungry or under any of the circumstances that I've mentioned. The child will be quiet because at that point in time, the child can feel the love, the child can feel the warmth around. And that's what happened when we move on to other stages of development. So for a child that you put in all the steps, you put in dialogue, you put in, assertive communication, you make the child understand the cause and the effect. That child is learning at that point in time. That child is speaking, character traits, behavioral traits at that point in time. And then that child would also understand how to express himself or how to express herself. And some of us as parents will say to our children, why are you crying? Please, crying most especially for toddlers and even for those that are that are grown, that are older than toddlers and preschoolers. Crying is one of the ways to express what is going on their inside. So rather than ask a child, why are you crying again, ask the child, or rather than ask the child, stop crying, or say to the child, stop crying, ask the child, why are you crying, what has happened? Oh, Fumi beat me. Tolu said my head is big, and this person said this and that. So what that child is making you to understand is what this person said, I don't like it. The interpretation I have of this statement is an insult. Or when this person beat me, of course, I felt pain. So at that point in time, the cry, which is the emotional response, is communicating what the child is feeling. So rather than telling your child or our children not to cry, please allow them to cry, because from that you can infer, you can know what is going on with the child. And for those that are older, they might withdraw. For those that are preschoolers, for those that are preteens, for those that are teenagers, they might withdraw when they are going through a lot of distress, maybe stress from schoolwork, friends, they are going through peer pressure, and you're like, this child is always moody. She just wants to be on her own. She will not even talk and all that. Do not forget, as adults, we have also gone through these stages. Yes, we might not recall or we might not remember, some of the challenges, the struggles that we had while we were in these stages. But it's important to learn at this point in time, why is the child moody? Why is that child quiet? Why is this child not listening to me? Engage the child. Ask questions. For the child that is crying, that can express himself or herself better through crying, ask questions. Do not say, oh, you're always moody. Everybody will be here in the sitting room. You just go and lock yourself in the room. What are you doing in that room? Rather than ask the child, what are you doing in that room? Move into the room. Spend time with the child. Ask the child questions. How is school? For adolescents now, some of them will say, fine. Their answer will be in monologue. Fine. Bring illustrations from experiences that you've had when you were in their stage to make conversations with them. Oh, when I was so and so and so and so, and this, I had this, I had this, I had this, I had that. Because sometimes children who are older, when I say children who are older, and I mean adolescents, they sometimes feel that, oh, these are our parents, they can't understand, they cannot relate. And then to a large extent, they are correct, because the generational gap is there. Even though we have gone through those stages, that gap is still there. I mean, we're talking about maybe 20, 30 years gap for some people. For some persons, it's even 40 years gap, and a whole lot of transition from technology, to fashion, to transition in education has happened. And really, we might not understand some things, but making them to realize that it's a developmental stage that they will go through, and some things are natural. When you engage them that way, you also know how to teach them. So rather than judge, rather than criticize the child, rather than blame the child, engage that child. Know what is happening in the life of the child. Use your experiences as an illustration. And finally, my final word is that emotional regulation is continuous. You don't, as a parent, as an adult, you don't say, okay, today I have learned or I have practiced how to express myself in healthy ways. I've not shouted at my child. Oh, in 1 week, I've not shouted, I'm not yelling, or I'm not calling my child names, as some people do, which is unhealthy. But and then maybe a week from now you forget about all of those things. No, emotional regulation is continuous. It's a process. It's not something that you do when the child is much younger, and when the child is a bit grown, is an adolescent, you are saying, oh, I need to be tough. In fact, at that point in time, everything a child needs to learn should have started from childhood. I mean, when children get to the adolescent stage, everything that child, or almost everything that child needs to know when it comes to behavioral responses, when it comes to managing their emotions, should have started from childhood. It is not in adolescence that you begin to do that. So understand that emotional regulation is a process, it's also a skill. You might need to read more, you might need to attend trainings like this, you might need to attend seminars, you might need to seek help as a parent. And when I say seek help, maybe you have been through a traumatic experience as a child, and because of the behavioral patterns you have learned from this trauma, which is not your fault, because trauma actually changes the way the brain functions. Trauma changes the way the brain interprets issues. So, because of what you have learned, you might find it challenging to regulate your emotions. You should seek help. Do not be quiet, do not be silent. Hello, Dr. Izini, are you there?
I'm here 100%. Like, this is a shift. Are you done?
Yes, I am.
Oh my God, this is a shift. This is a shift. Wumi, I don't know if you felt the same transformation I felt just listening to
I
Bosede.
did. She's very worded. You're
I'm
very good and
like,
very worded.
oh my
Thank you
goodness,
so
like
much
this
for
is
this
the
session.
shift.
Yeah. I was jotting down some of the things you were saying,
Me
and you're
too.
right.
Me
Well
too.
done, ma'am. Thank you so much.
If you have any question, please ask. If you have any question, please ask. This is transformational. Like, oh my goodness. Thank you.
And I
Thank you.
really, really did like your mindset, despite the electricity issues, you just kept continuing. And I was seeing your smile. You see, like I'm unbothered with all that. So it was a very good thing to him to see.
She needs to come back online. Wow. This is really, really transformational. I like the way she was really practical, making it so relatable, then step by step on how to approach these things, how to regulate your emotions. As in, this is like a wow for me. See, I'm not even alone. That he was says this is wow. This is really a wow. So as in, I can't even wait to go out there and start practicing. I can't wait to go and start practicing. Let me say, what will my daughter do now? Maybe she'll be crying, and I'll now try to figure out why she's crying, coming down to her level, and then regulating my own emotions. And then later we can have dialogue. And I realized that whenever we have dialogues, she's really attentive. She really listens. And even before I finishes, she's telling me, I'm sorry. Although Bosede said that's not the goal of dialogues. But I get that. She says, I'm sorry. She wants to give you a hug. And then she's telling you she won't do it again. I love the practicality of this session. If you have any questions, guys, please share. Ask, ask, ask. Let's maximize her time here, Bosede, because what she has taught here, I assure you, you must know how much you're going to pay to access this knowledge. I know people that charge a lot on topics like this, emotional regulation for parents. So if you have any questions, please ask. If you don't have any question, just show appreciation then. And while we are waiting for comments, questions, just tell us about your social media or how we can contact you in case we need for that. information or anything else. But say, did you hear me?
Okay, my line, will I say my line or the line is breaking? I could hear you speaking, but I didn't get the question.
Okay, I said, while we are waiting for question, tell us how we can contact you in case we need further information from you or anything else.
Okay, my LinkedIn handle is Bosede Oyelakin. The way my name is on the screen, and my mail address is Bosede Oyelakin 16 at gmail.com.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I saw your private message. You need to run. Oh dear. No worries. Thank
Yes,
you so
ma'am.
much for this session. I really appreciate it. We all appreciate it. I was telling them before you went offline that I can't wait to go and start practicing practicing what you just said now, especially in regards to my kids. I can't wait to go and start practicing. And this is one session I need to rewatch again because it's the practicality for me. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right,
Bye.
ma.
Okay, so let's
Yes.
leave you now. People are sending comments, but we have to leave you to run. It's all right.
I
Thank you
can
so much.
take, let me take two questions. Then let me
Okay,
take two questions so I don't just leave, people aloof like that.
yeah. We haven't seen any question yet. It's just comments
Praise God.
about the
Praise the
session.
Lord.
Like
Okay.
just
All right.
comments about the session. Like this is a wow. It's really amazing. If anyone has any questions, and you can send it to her on her social media. This when she started, I told you guys that she teaches a lot, and it's so evident she's actually a teacher. Thank you so much, Bosede. So you can connect with her on LinkedIn and then her email as well. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much, Bosede.
Okay. All right, Dr. Isn't
Okay. So guys, we've come to the end of today's session. I don't know if this is a time well spent for you. If it is, let me see in the comments. Was this time well spent for you? Was your time well maximized? Was it quality investment for you? Or do you have any word to describe the summit so far? Let's see in the comments. And while you're writing, I'll just drop this announcement to you that tomorrow is grand finale. Tomorrow is going to be a panel session. For those that don't know what it means we are going to have 5 panelists on the screen at the same time dissecting this topic, understanding your child's mental well-being. So it's going to be more detailed, more practical. In previous summits, people usually say that the second day is usually their best because they get time to relate to the experiences shared by panelists. They also get to ask more detailed questions and get responses because you have different people on the screen at the same time. So tomorrow is a day you should not miss. And one thing I will encourage you to do is please share this summit, share whatever you've learned to people, because it would be really unfair that you're putting all this effort to train your children just for them to get to school or to go outside there and they're influenced by peers because the peers were ignorant. Maybe their parents didn't really know what to do. So share it to your audience so that we'll have a community or a society that is raising their children well, so that nobody pollutes our efforts, so that nobody um, ruins the things we are doing to take care of our own children. Okay, so share whatever you've learned. Share. For those in the email list, we are going to send recordings to your emails so that you can catch the replay. And I see all you right. And what do you do to each other? Says I won't do it again. I repeat the same thing again and again. I think for me, I'm not the expert here, but I think that from the things I've gathered so far, keep talking to them. They are listening, they are absorbing it. you will see the change with time. Sometimes it's not instant. It's just sometimes I look at my daughter, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you, because the you were a year ago is really different from the you are right now, because she's not perfect, but there is difference. That means they are actually listening, they are understanding what you're saying regardless of their age. So just keep talking, okay? Don't get tired. It's intentional parenting. And then Julia says, this is so real, Winnie. Time well spent. Can't believe I stayed all through. Busola, time well spent. Juliet, I see you, Ba. Thank you so much. Mom, who is your mom? I'm not your mom. Juliet, I appreciate you, ba Juliet, and I appreciate you. Ebe Age, you have done well. We all have done well. Ikiru, this is my sister-in-law, wonderful woman. Really interesting. I enjoyed all the sessions. Adebola, the session is worthwhile. I really appreciate every one of you, and do well to invite other people. And I'm going to send out um, emails, and please just give us reviews. We really appreciate it. Okay, give us feedback. We really appreciate it. It helps us to improve in subsequent summits. Please plan to attend that of tomorrow. Thank you so much. Wumi, anything?
No, see you all tomorrow. And have a restful night.
Yeah, see you all tomorrow. I don't even feel like going, but we have to go. It's almost 4 hours. We have to go. See you all tomorrow. Come back more gingered, because tomorrow is going to be the ball. Just don't miss it. Okay? Signing out.
Bye.